Hi team, Coach Alexa here. I'm having a lot of conversations with my runners about the weather this week. It's a funny one, isn't it? Even just today, it's gone from lovely, bright, kind of autumnal sunshine through to now absolutely piddling it down with rain and quite dark grey skies. We really don't know what we're going to get, and the complexity with the weather we've had not all the time, but most of the time over the last month or so, is that it's also still pretty mild. So I think it's about 17 or 18 degrees today, but it is, I don't know whether you can even hear it in the video, absolutely pouring it down with rain. So if, for example, I was going out for a 45 minute speed work session, I probably wouldn't wear a raincoat because I would just get too hot. But even, whereas if I was going on a long run in this sort of variable weather, mild, muggy, but quite wet, I would probably still consider taking a raincoat with me or wearing it, because on a long run you're running slower, and when we're running slower our muscles generate less heat. So heat is produced by our body in more of a quantity when we run, because our muscles produce it as a byproduct of the process by which they turn the energy from the food, the gels, the breakfast that we had, into movement. So the energy into movement process in the muscle cells produces heat. So the faster you go, the more heat you will produce. So this is why it's worth taking into account the type of session that you're doing. Also double checking on a weather app the temperature, but also the humidity levels, because on a muggy, fairly mild but really wet day like today, you will have a very different experience to if eventually the weather turns to be nice and cold and crisp and properly wintry, in which case jackets and layers will definitely still be required. Couple of other things to think about if you do get absolutely soaked through. I keep glancing out the window because it really, the rain is getting heavier and heavier as I go through this video. Is to think about avoiding cotton. Now, most people know to avoid cotton sort of t-shirts, shorts, joggers, etc. when they run, because the fabrics kind of chafe a bit, and when they get wet they get very, very heavy and they chafe even more. They're not particularly breathable either. But it's worth a reminder that that also extends to underwear. So when you're going out, like I did earlier in the week and got absolutely soaked in the heavy rain down to my underwear, having cotton blend pants on isn't necessarily a pleasant experience from a sort of a chafing point of view, and also making sure that your socks are a technical fabric as well. A rain jacket obviously is really, really good for keeping you as dry as possible. Rain will still always get in down the collar, obviously down your sleeves, obviously because your hands are a little bit higher when you're running than when you're walking, when they're down by your sides. But on a mild, muggy day today, I'd be tempted just to get soaked and get on with it, as I say, on a shorter, speedier run. The other thing that's worth thinking about is merino. So I have 2 or 3 different merino tops. A merino is a specific type of wool. It is quite insulating, it's quite warm. It's not it doesn't do what traditional wool does, where it gets quite sort of soggy and heavy and absorbs a load of water in the way that same way that traditional wool does. It retains its shape, and more importantly, it retains a lot more of its insulating qualities even when it's wet than technical fabrics do. So technical fabrics feel quite cold when they're soaked through. So that might be worth it if we do ever get some colder winter weather, just thinking about as well. Well, if anyone can find and recommend a really accurate weather app, I don't think things exist with the unpredictability of the weather these days for us and for poor nature at the moment. Then let me know. Enjoy your running.